Like most British people, I love James Bond. When I was younger I watched all the films and enjoyed them, especially the Pierce Brosnan ones. As well as all the films, I also loved the James Bond games when I was younger too. Like everyone with an N64, I played GoldenEye for hours and hours, and even though it's now aged horribly, it'll still always be a classic to me. After GoldenEye, I brought Agent on Fire, Nightfire, Everything or Nothing, and GoldenEye Rogue Agent. So what did I think of these now almost forgotten games? Simply great, awesome, yeah, it was alright. In my eyes, Nightfire and Everything or Nothing was as good as GoldenEye, while doing things in their own way. Why am I telling you all this? Well, honestly, before touching Bloodstone, GoldenEye Rogue Agent was the last Bond game I played. I actually kind of liked Rogue Agent. I just thought From Russia with Love looked like a bad idea and I had no interest in playing it. So after all these years and finally being given a copy of Bloodstone, I was excited about getting to control James Bond again. Could Bloodstone give the older titles a run for their money or crash and burn like many licensed games? Well, let's have a look. Back in 2006, Activision bought the rights to publish James Bond games from EA. After the Quantum of Solace game was released, they announced two new games. One was a brand new original game called Bloodstone for HD consoles, and one was a reimagining of GoldenEye for the Wii. I think it's pretty obvious which one people were more excited about. The remake was being handled by Eurocom, who made Nightfire back in the day. Bloodstone was made by Bizarre Creations, who made Project Gotham Racing. What? Okay, what else did they make? Geometry Wars. What? They made a racing game and, I quote from Wikipedia, a multi-directional shooter? Well, they can obviously make good games, so maybe they can pull off making a good James Bond game. Let's start with the story. The game starts off with M talking to someone about something. I won't lie, I paid zero attention to the beginning story, but don't worry, I'll look it up. A terrorist is trying to bomb a summit in Athens, and Bond tries to save the day and of course stops the bomb from going off. This beginning is unrelated to the rest of the plot, almost a Bond standard at this point. The theme plays and it's a pretty nice opening. It's Joss Stone singing, and I personally don't like the style of singing here, but it's definitely a better song than Another Way to Die was. The majority of the game involves Bond trying to, whoops, didn't pay attention to any of the story. 1 second again. Bond is sent to save a professor, but the professor is killed and Bond gets some guy's name from someone. He meets a lady, played by Joss Stone, and tracks that guy down and eventually kills him as he was doing something with bioweapons. Turns out somebody wanted him dead, and I'm going to stop here. The story here isn't good for a few reasons. First of all, the character models are pretty bad, which takes you out of the cutscenes. Second, every cutscene constantly tells you that you can skip it or pause it, which also takes you out of them a bit. Thirdly, there's no real overall story here. The game is split into 3 chapters and they feel like 3 individual stories. In fact, the game pretty much has 3 ending cutscenes. Fourth, there's no main villain, with each possible villain just passing the book each time Bond catches them. Once you kill the final random villain, Rack, who has no backstory by the way, there's a twist that the girl who helped you actually hired him. But she's not even at the top, as it turns out she was hired by someone else and that person kills her. But it's never revealed who that person was. The best James Bond films and games had interesting main villains who you were aware of throughout the film to set them up, even if Bond was dealing with the small fries. The Bond games of the past didn't have great thought-provoking stories, but had the basic elements of a good Bond story, so it had the Bond charm to them. This story has none of that Bond charm and is awful. I don't even know why it's called Bloodstone. Maybe it was because Joss Stone was on her period when she was working on this game. The game is played from a third-person perspective. Bond games are mostly played from first person, but Everything or Nothing proved that the third person can work for 007, so I wasn't worried about this going into the game. Gunplay involves hiding behind cover, waiting for enemies to show themselves, and popping out of cover yourself to take them out. That's about it. You can perform a takedown on someone if close enough, and this will give you a focused shot. You press LB and fire for an instant kill. There's nothing wrong with gunfights, but every single fight is the same, popping in and out of cover and killing the exact same enemies throughout the whole game. A better name for this game would be 007 Whack a Henchman. There isn't anything wrong with the gunfights, but you definitely are going to get bored by them before the end of the game. Also, you run by holding in on the left stick, but it would have been much better if you run all the time, or if you could hold a button instead of holding in the stick. It isn't comfortable, and it means that you're just not going to end up running half the time. It's weird to see James Bond just jogging around the place because you don't want to hold in the stick. This especially affects on-foot chases because you're supposed to be chasing them down, but you're not running because you're not going to hold in the stick the whole time, so most of them are dull. If you don't want to go in all guns blazing, there are stealth elements here. Well, finally, the stealth sections in Everything or Nothing were awesome, so they'll be just as good here, right? Look, I'm just going to say straight away why the stealth doesn't work. You can't crouch to sneak up on enemies, there's no cool Bond gadgets to use, there's no real consequence of being caught apart from a few easily killable bad guys. Every single person becomes aware of your presence too easily, and killing someone with your silenced weapon still alerts everyone. I'm going to explain what makes good stealth in games. The ability for the player to plan a strategy to get from point A to B, real ramifications to being caught creating tension, and being effective against enemies if you're smart enough. None of these elements are in this game. If I went through why each of the points I listed ruins the stealth, this review would go on forever, but I will say this. The fact I can't go behind an enemy in this game without them noticing you because I can't crouch, and apparently my footsteps are loud enough for them to just turn around when I'm behind them, kills any desire to stay undetected at all. If you're a fan of spy work, this game does deliver. There are a few sections where Bond walks around an area and uses his smartphone to do whatever he needs it to do. There's nothing wrong with these sections apart from that you can't fail at them, and the spy phone is your only gadget. The spy phone is actually used throughout the game to track enemies' movement, find the collectibles, and also disable cameras. I get that the Bond in this game is based on Daniel Craig's Bond, but can you have a few gadgets here? You don't have to have anything as crazy as the Q-Claw, but something would have been nice. I have to say that maybe Daniel Craig's Bond doesn't translate to a good game, or a good Bond game at least. I like Daniel Craig as Bond, but a lot of the Bond charm that I mentioned earlier is gone in this game. The game can't decide whether it's going to have the silliness of the old games or not. There's no gadgets, but out of nowhere you get attacked by a giant drill. Bond flips and destroys his car many times, but just walks out of them without a scratch. Bond doesn't even tell any jokes. I don't expect the cringe-worthy punch of the old films, but something would have been nice. Oh wait, there is one joke.
He already thinks I'm a terrible driver. I wreck everyone I get into.
Back in London, they say the same thing about me. Anyway.
What? You wreck everything you get into? Where's the subtlety? Where's the lightheartedness? Out of all the chances you had for Bond to tell a joke, you have him say that? What's wrong with you? There would have been... You could have said anything. The puns would have been better. I think I'm just going to have to move on. The majority of Bond games feature driving sections, and this game is no exception. Now, if you want anyone to make driving sections, it's the guys who made Project Gotham Racing. Each driving section is the same. You're told to chase someone down and you stay on their tail until the game lets you catch them up. Now, I like PGR4, but Bizarre Creations have no idea what they're doing here. The chases feature good setups, but you can never get into it because something will always cause you to fail. Whether it be how easy it is for you to spin out and face the other way, the random cars that have been placed in your way on purpose, and how easy it is to go the wrong way or off course. Even if you don't get messed up by any of these problems, the chases are dull due to the realistic feel. Where's the arcadey feel? Where's the gameplay apart from simply following someone? The boat bit is cool, as you have to avoid obstacles, kill enemies and keep from the bad guy, but all the car sections lack character. You can really feel the fact that you don't have your missiles or any sort of gadgets on your car. You're just driving a car, and it's not really exciting. I would have to say that while these in PGR4 this kind of car design and driving design worked really well, here you just want the Bond kind of explosions and shooting things, and while there are explosions, they're just not fun. The graphics are decent, but Bond and M just look bad. You can tell they're Daniel Craig and Judi Dench, but M looks like some sort of mutant, and Bond never changes his facial expression. Seriously, it never changes. Not when you're killed, or not when you're being punched in the face in one of the scenes. Just never! This next point might sound a bit nerdy, but the sound direction here is terrible. Large sections feature no music at all, and when the music does cut in, it just sounds like a mess. Also, the music pretty much completely fades away when you use your smartphone, which, because you have to use your smartphones in gunfights to track enemy movement so you know where you are, it's really distracting to have the music fade in, fade out, fade in, because you're trying to keep track of the enemies. Let's have a look at one scene to show you what I mean by bad sound direction. Here it is normally.
He's trapped! Now! Quick! Dump it in the pit!
Now look how much better I can make it with one simple easy sound edit.
Quick! Dump it in the pit!
And the worst thing is, that soundbite doesn't even feature in the whole game. It's James Bond, that's just embarrassing. Lastly, the game's just too short. I beat it on Agent, which is the hardest difficulty you can choose at the beginning, although you can eventually unlock the 00 Agent mode. I beat it on my first try in 5 hours. I wasn't expecting anything over 8 hours for a James Bond single player game, but 5 hours is just too short. Even though I've complained about almost every single aspect of this game in the review, it's honestly not that bad. There are some fun moments, and even though there's not much to this game, you can still enjoy it if you're a fan of Bond or third-person shooters. It's a forgettable experience, but there's nothing painstakingly bad here. If you're a fan of Daniel Craig's Bond, play the GoldenEye remake. If you're a fan of third-person shooters, stick with Gears of War. If you want both, play Splinter Cell Conviction. It did what this game wanted to do, but a lot better, and has amazing co-op. Oh wait, that's right, there's multiplayer in this game. It's alright. Okay, glad I covered that. Overall, my score is 5.5 out of 10. It's not a bad game, but it's a disappointing Bond game. It's hard to ignore how amateur this game feels, and it's both unmemorable and short.